Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield, two guys who went at it when they were in the Big 12 conference back a few years ago. Total domination by Mahomes in this one.
And now a game that wasn't dominated in any way, which honestly the Broncos should have won. They had a chance on a 51-yarder from Brandon McManus. And this is in Denver, by the way, where you can make 50-yarders with ease with that thin, crisp air. Yet he goes wide right. As time expires, they lose 19-17 to the Texans, who have now won 6 straight games after starting 0-2.
And this was the game where Demaryius Thomas, who got traded to the Texans by the Broncos earlier in the week, wound up having a rather hasty homecoming. And it took that butchered field goal, which was makeable because Denver is notorious for not having much wind. The altitude always seems to favor kickers on either side. The Texans came away really lucky here.
I'll tell you, Vance Joseph made one of the dumbest coaching decisions at the end of the first half when he decides to ice Kaimi Fairbairn. When the 41-yard he was hitting, basically went wide right. Had he not called a timeout, it would have definitely changed the game right there. Instead, he calls a timeout, and he gives him a do-over, so he's able to make that 46-yard. And instead of being at 13-10 into the second half, it's 16-10. So right there, it's that type of coaching decision that really hurts your team right there.
See, I hate when coaches do that. There has to be some kind of tinkering with the rules where you cannot call a timeout just as a snap is made. It has to be made before the guys even get into their stance.
Yep. Had he not done it, they could have won. That's the difference right there in this game. So, and Denver, of course, is just in a bit of a free fall right now. Case Keenum, I don't think is totally at fault, but he's not. It's
his days are numbered. It's over.
Speaking of numbers that are really terrible.
This was really, really painful to watch, that Jet game against the Dolphins. Not only did Sam Darnold get picked 4 times in this game, they couldn't even so much as try to get more than 6 points against a Dolphins team whose quarterback was equally putrid. Because guess who the other guy was that was taking the snaps from center for the Dolphins was? It's Brock Osweiler. You're going to tell me you can't get a win against Brock Osweiler, a guy who's proven to be a flash in the pan in this game. Sorry, but the Jets should be ashamed of themselves for losing this game. I mean, I know the Dolphins played well defensively, but you cannot score. You've got to score more than 6 points against a Brock Osweiler-led Dolphins squad.
How bad was that Dolphins offense? Just, besides the Jets were terrible.
Both. It felt like it was both teams were pounding the gas, but in neutral. You hear the engine revving, but the car's going nowhere. It's just like, it was like a car crash. You couldn't even look away. Like, even when you saw it, it was just like, this is miserable.
As if things were not bad enough for the Jets. Now I just heard that Sam Darnold was seen at practice in a walking boot. Now he may or may not play Sunday against the Bills because of that foot injury, which means, dare I say it,
Josh McCown.
Josh McCown has to return to play at quarterback for them. There are actually guys who had good things to say about McCown during practice, saying that he was seeing things down the field the way Sam Darnold was not able to.
He only had 13 snaps in the preseason. That's it. He hasn't had a single regular season snap, and he's going to be coming into a situation. But good thing you're playing the Buffalo Bills. It's not like he's playing a team that's that difficult to play against, and they're at home. So he's coming some advantages. But anyway,
watch the Jets do something stupid like lose to the Bills at home.
Teams on the bye.
That's not going to be stupid. I'm not going to lie. I'm thinking going with the Bills on this one.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't surprise me.
Ravens on the bye this week. Right now, they're looking their wounds. They need to start getting some victories. Otherwise, they're done. Denver, yikes. Season pretty much game, set, match. Texans 6-3, first time since the 1979 New York Jets for a team to start 0-3 and reel off 6 straight wins.
That's a real shame that the Texans have to go into their bye because they were just smoking these last 6 games. Deshaun Watson was playing some of his best football, and now they have to get a week off. Usually these bye weeks treat teams differently. Let's see what it does with the Texans.
Skull!
You mean skull?
Nice. I knew that was coming.
I personally like that chant. That's a very cool chant.
You know that it's Norwegian. It's Scandinavian for scoring.
I liked it when I first saw it on the soccer match when they were all doing it right before the soccer team would do their little warm-ups and the whole crowd would get into it. I'm telling you, that probably feels phenomenal for those players.
I like seeing the Norse guy coming in with the ship and all that, and he's banging on the drum. Like,
They've got great fans in Minnesota.
Oh, yes.
Last night, Panthers, Steelers.
Let me put it this way. The Panthers probably wish that they did not even show up to this game because the Steelers, they played every which way and dominated. I mean, they were dominant on the offensive line. Big Ben looked outstanding. And to think, the Panthers actually had a lead for a short time.
But it
three touchdowns in 24 seconds. And then what happens? It's as if it took just a few seconds on the sidelines for the Steelers to come up with some early game adjustments, and all of a sudden they just snapped as if they were a different team. Big Ben had a wonderful game, and James Conner, who continues to show himself very well as Le'Veon Bell's replacement, also had a wonderful game.
5 total touchdowns. Did you see
Big Ben 5? That's phenomenal. The guy just wills the team, and I'm telling you, it seems like when he scores, the whole team gets behind him. And it felt like Carolina. You could just feel like the wind just coming out of their sails. Like
it was so bad that one of the Panthers players was actually caught falling asleep on the sidelines.
Crying? Oh
no, sleeping.
Crying? There's no crying in football.
He literally fell asleep. If you go into the Bleacher Report and look for it,
oh yeah, he was like,
wow.
He literally fell asleep. That's how much of a snoozer it was.
Yeah. As a coach, you got to rip into a player for that. That's
inexcusable.
Yeah. Don't be surprised if he's out of a job.
Bills, and they end up winning 52-21. All 3 of those scores, Christian McCaffrey. That's why you got Christian McCaffrey. He's dangerous in open space. Yes. Bills, Jets, at home at the Meadowlands, East Rutherford. If I had to be a betting man in this one, I'm going with the New York Jets because this is the game of ineptitude. I was looking forward to seeing Nathan Peterman and Darnold for the one reason, see who would get the most interceptions in this one game. But now, it's going to be McCown versus Peterman. Honestly, it's like watching a prize fighter versus an amateur, even though it's not comparable, but still.
I'm calling 13-6 Buffalo, and I'm actually going to see a lot of just pure chaos. I don't even think it's going to be like. It's going to be almost like watching JV sports where the kids aren't 100% sure what they need to be doing.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of running around, not a lot of ball movement.
I'm curious to see how many fans are even going to show up at the stadium for this game because not only are both offenses struggling mightily, Buffalo's defense stinks.
Yes. High heaven.
They were not as good as they were or as people thought they were last year. Bottom line, the Jets should win this game. Emphasis on should because Buffalo is terrible. But don't be surprised if they lay another clunker here.
I got the Jets winning this one, but it's going to be, I think, a 2-touchdown game. Giants, Niners in Monday night.
Speaking of clunkers.
Yes. There's another car crash.
Nick Mullins, another victory, prime time. It's so bad for the Giants. They're selling tickets on Groupon. When you're selling tickets on Groupon, then you know your season's pretty much over right there.
Which means they're probably selling them for what? A couple of bucks?
You can't give it.
They want people in the stadium and in the stands, and it's hard to get people to come out and spend good money when you know it's a goose egg.
It's funny that we mentioned this because a few years ago, ESPN did a 30 for 30 story about the University of Miami. It's called the U. back in the 70s when the program was really bad, they used to give away tickets at McDonald's just to try and fill the old Orange Bowl seats. Get a Big Mac and fries and a Coke, they'll give you a ticket for free.
Nice.
This is how bad it's gotten for both of these franchises.
Maybe that's the next thing. Well, I hear all the Wendy's commercials. Maybe if you buy a Davy single and all that, you get a Giants ticket.
Nice.
Oh,
Maybe
brother.
a Frosty. Maybe it's
All
a
right,
Frosty.
now let's go from the outhouse into the penthouse.
I got
Saints and Bengals. The Saints outstanding in their victory against the Rams, going up against the Bengals squad that's trying to make a claim in the AFC North. I smell trap game here, to be honest with you.
I got the Saints winning this. I cannot pick the Bengals. Even though, yes, you got Joe Mixon, but who's not playing this week? A.J. Green. He's actually sidelined. So that's going to put a lot of strain on the rest of the receivers who have to step up for Andy Dalton. But I don't see that happening. That's why I got the Saints defense being able to contain Mixon, forcing Dalton to throw, which he'll make a mistake. Therefore, Breeze is going to take advantage. I got the Saints winning this one.
I wouldn't sleep on the Bengals that quickly. I mean, Red Dalton is a really solid quarterback, and I think he has enough, even in spite of Green being out, to try and make up for it. I mean, I think the Saints can win this game, but Cincinnati's going to make them work.
Who you
Yeah,
got?
I like the Saints, but I think it's going to be one of those things where they're going to put the Saints are going to put 8 in the box to stop Mixon and say, if you're going to beat us, you got to go yard. And I don't think they can go yard. I think it's going to be a tough uphill battle for Cincinnati. I see them barely scoring 2 touchdowns.
Cowboys, Eagles, Sunday Night Football, NFC East showdown. These two teams are really going to now, with the situation Washington is in, whoever wins this game could put their season back on track in the fight for the NFC East. Who loses this game, basically their season is derailed, done. I got the Eagles, especially with the acquisition of Golden Tate. He played the Cowboys early in the season. He burned them for 2 touchdowns, especially that 38-yarder in zone coverage.
Yes.
Gonna happen again. I like Eagles.
This game is so critical for both teams' playoff chances. Not just the NFC Eastern Division title, but their playoff chances in general.
Yes.
When you think about it, both teams are really dangerous offensively. But if anything, whereas the Eagles are at least a little bit better on the other side of the ball, the Cowboys have the speed on the line, but their secondary is way too questionable. And against a team that's got Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz and Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffrey, I shudder to think what Carson Wentz is going to do against that secondary. I like the Eagles in this one.
I like the Eagles too, and I'm calling this a little prediction. I said the Eagles run them up, and you're going to say goodbye to the coach. I think Dallas's Jerry Jones might be the one to pull and cut the string, I think, at the end of this game. When they're knocked out of the playoffs, I feel like Jerry Jones not going to be too happy. He's going to be like,
sayonara.
By the way,
I'm calling it. Remember
Jason
who said it
Garrett,
first? Jason Garrett.
Jason Garrett is currently the second longest tenured head coach in Cowboys history, but behind, of course, Tom Landry.
Mr. Hat.
Yeah.
Lions, Bears, one of the oldest rivalries in football, NFC North showdown. Basically, the Bears right now are still holding on to first in the NFC North with the season that they're having, 5-3, best start since 2013. The Lions right now need a victory in this one to even have a chance, especially in the next 3 weeks. They got 2 matchups with this Bears team sandwiched with the Vikings. They need these wins in the worst possible way. I think the Bears, though, Tarek Cohen is gonna make a mess out of this game. 100 total yards, most of it on receiving. I got the Bears winning this one.
I'm going to go with the Bears too. I just think the only big problem is the Detroit Lions, even when they're bad, they still play tough against the Bears, and they always give them like a run for their money. But I see them keeping up by the halftime, by third, fourth quarter, the Bears just pull away.
Well, now that the Bears are going to have Khalil Mack return to this game, the Bears defense is only going to be so much better. Detroit, I can't figure out Detroit whatsoever.
It's two different teams that come out. They're like a Gemini.
Exactly right. Two different teams that make their way out. I mean, they can lose a real clunker to the Jets opening week of the season, then come back and pick up a really, really big victory against a team like the Packers. I don't know what to tell you, except after the quarterback, their running game, their offensive line, and the defense really, really shaky. I like Chicago in this one.
Student versus the teacher. Patriots. Bill Belichick versus Mike Vrabel. Even though Vrabel was never a coach under Belichick, he did play 8 years for the guy and was part of 3 Super Bowl championship teams right there and was one of the monster linebackers in the league. Now they're going up against each other in Music City, the day of the CMA Awards, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
What music will be playing?
Oh, this is going to be Patriots
Rock and roll.
Patriots all day long. It's sad to say, but most of the time when the guys who go up against Belichick, who are former students, they usually get their pants pulled down and smacked. They get a little spanking on TV and, hey, I taught you everything. I know what you know, and then some. So I'm going to say it's going to be a beatdown.
And there's a big Patriot connection. The general manager, John Robinson, for the Titans, was a scout for the Patriots. Malcolm Butler also was a former cornerback for them. Deion Lewis, former running back.
Yeah, but Butler just...
These guys want revenge against the Patriots, specifically Malcolm Butler.
Yes.
You think Malcolm Butler doesn't have this game circled on his calendar? He's been looking forward to this one ever since he signed his contract with the Titans.
Look for him to be matched up with Josh Gordon.
Yes, that's going to be the big one to look at. And I'm telling you, I think Belichick's going to pick him apart. He knows his weaknesses. I think that's one of the reasons why he pulled him from the Super Bowl.
The talent is there at certain positions for the Titans, but they're way too inconsistent. I have to pick New England in this one.
I got the Pats, too, winning this one. I think it'll be over by the half, in fact.
I say a beatdown.
Seahawks, Rams, NFC West showdown. The last time they played each other was in the Emerald City. In fact, the Rams pulled off a 33-31 victory. It was a close by the seat of their pants. Will it be another skin of their teeth type of victory? I think this time in LA in the Coliseum. Pete Carroll, of course, being a former USC coach who played there many years. Coached there many years, but it doesn't matter to me.
That's his old stomping grounds right there. I mean, there's no way that he's going to go in there and lay down for this team. He's going to try and come up with every way possible to game plan against the Rams. But when you think about it, the Rams are just way too talented, way too good defensively. Seattle has really declined defensively really, really badly ever since they either released or traded away some of their guys. I think the Rams win this one.
They're going against a Seahawks team that their leading receiver averages 52 yards a game, Tyler Lockett. When you have one receiver that averages 52 yards, it's terrible. I got the Rams winning this one.
Yep, I have the Rams. This is definitely not the Rose Bowl, and Pete Carroll is definitely going to be licking his wounds after this game.
We got the Redskins going up against the Buccaneers. Redskins, of course, having massive injuries on their offensive line. 2 that are out for the year, and a guy like Brandon Scherf. And you got Trent Williams, who's hurt as well. Morgan Moses with a sprained knee. That's 4 offensive linemen that could not be playing this week. If I'm the Buccaneers, especially with a defense that's the worst in the league, this is the week where the defense can take advantage and make a statement at home. So in light of all this, I'm going with the upset. I got the Bucs winning just in lieu of all the injury issues that the O-line. I think the Buccaneers are going to get 6 sacks on Alex Smith.
Yeah, I want to see who wins the quarterback battle here, Ryan Fitztragic or Alex Smith, who I feel is a lot more consistent and a lot more durable. So in this case, even though he's working with a shortage in offensive linemen, I still have to pick Washington in this one. Tampa is just way too inconsistent, and they're very, very shaky at quarterback and at running back. Defensively, they're extremely shaky. All Washington in this one.
Alex smacked.
I like Washington too, and I say Adrian Peterson holds them off. He has a good running day against the Tampa Bay defense.
Ooh, I'm the only one. Dolphins, Packers. Honestly, I got the Packers winning this one. They're going into Green Bay. The only connection is Joe Philbin, the ex-head coach, who's the offense coordinator for the Packers. Other than that, Cameron Wake had 2 sacks last week, but you got to take into account it was against the Jets. You're not going to have that type of week again, Cam. So don't think you're going to be able to get in the face of Aaron Rodgers. This week, Aaron Rodgers and company are going to take advantage of the Dolphins. I got them winning.
Not only that, but the Dolphins' offense is just god-awful right now.
They're anemic.
Speaking of god-awful, you got 2 mediocre squads, emphasis on mediocre going at it, Jaguars and Colts.
The sad part is the Jacksonville Jaguars started the season. They were like, all right, even though they were shaky at the quarterback, I thought the defense was going to be solid. And then you had Fournette running the rock. I was like, this team, they have a chance to definitely do some damage and take their division. And boy, did they fall on their face. It just hit after hit. It felt like a prize fighter, and he just kept taking hit after hit after hit right in the face. Oof.
And Bortles committing so many bad turnovers too, and the defense is not playing with urgency that like we saw last year, where they led the league in every major
aspect of the defense.
The only thing they're leading right now is not even in sacks. Is actually still against the pass, which I can't believe they're still doing good in that category. But the Colts this year, Andrew Luck is actually having an improving season, which could put him in the conversation for comeback player of the year, possibly. But I think JJ is going to end up winning that award with the way
he's an animal.
But in this game particularly, I got the Colts winning by a Vinatieri field goal.
I couldn't even begin to tell you who wins this game, because when you think about it, the Colts have nothing in the backfield except maybe for Andrew Luck when he's 100% healthy. No offensive line, no defense to speak of. As far as the Jaguars are concerned, Blake Bortles is back to some old habits. They can't score. Dare I say this game ends in a tie?
0-0.
Oh my! Have we ever seen a 0-0 game?
We might have it in the first
Maybe back in the
history.
old days of the NFL. I mean, there have been a couple of 3-0 games. I remember one time the Jets won a game 3-0 over the Redskins in D.C.
Or when the Giants won the Super Bowl by 1 point against the Bills.
Yes.
The wide left.
The famous wide left game.
Wide, I am.
Mr. Norwood, thank you so much. I loved every minute of it.
Believe me, Giant fans were probably sending him gift baskets, while Bills fans were sending him bad
Death threats.
Threats and bad cards too, saying, "You jerk, thank you for losing us." That was the only chance they had after those 4, and they got, ooh. Speaking of bad, Cardinals Chiefs. Even though this could sound like trap game, I honestly think the trap is going to be laid for the Cardinals. It's going to be a bunch of mouse traps, and they're looking for the cheese, and every time they do, right there. So that's what Josh Rose and company are going to be experiencing all Sunday afternoon. I got the Chiefs winning. In fact, it's going to be so bad by the end of by the second half, I think Patrick Mahomes sits down.
Well, we'll see about that. I mean, granted, this is a trap game, but look at who the Chiefs are playing. It's the Cardinals. They have absolutely 100% zero offense to speak of. You cannot win games by averaging 230 yards of offense a game. You just don't do it. All Chiefs all the time in this one.
Yeah, all day. And I could see definitely Hill and maybe even Hunt by the third quarter. Hey, take a seat on the bench. Fire up the alternates.
You know,
This game is over.
sometimes
The B squad.
Yes.
Sometimes
Mop-up
I
duty.
wonder about this Cardinals franchise. I mean, we know that the Bidwell family has run that franchise forever, but is there anybody in their family that knows anything about football? No. Because there's a reason why they've gone over 7 decades without a single championship, an NFL championship.
And the best chance they had was in the Super Bowl against the Steelers. And if it wasn't for that 100-yard pick six by, of all people, Harrison, that screwed them right there. And long the Santonio Holmes touchdown, where he barely had his feet in bounds.
I remember seeing that. That was a great one. What was that, 2009?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. January 2009.
Yeah.
In Tampa. And that was the E Street Band was the halftime show.
Yep.
Falcons, Browns. Oh, my God. Why? This is like what?
Why? Because that's what the schedule makers did. And this is the NFC South here to play the AFC North.
Think of being at a dentist chair and having your teeth pulled out.
Yeah, Falcons, easy call. I do like to watch Joe Baker and watching him during his progressions. I think next year they plug in another good offensive lineman. I like Chubbs. Chubbs runs the rock. Now that they got rid of Carlos Hyde, he's now starting to show that, hey, I can handle the workload. Don't nap on Cleveland. I say in a year and two, they could definitely be playoff bound and turn in some heads.
They do have a lot of pieces in place, and they got Myles Garrett on the defense. But overall, this Browns team right now is headed probably for another top 10 draft pick. I definitely got the Falcons right now, who are getting hot at the right time. They're getting players back on their defense. They just got Bruce Irvin, who worked with Dan Quinn back in Seattle. Falcons all the way. And the last game of the week, Chargers visiting the Raiders in the black hole they call Oakland.
The Raiders are a black hole.
I'm not going to lie. When they first actually brought in Chucky, I thought it was going to be take the reins and run to the playoffs. I didn't see this whole thing unfolding and becoming a rebuild, reboot, ship off half the guys. I thought that they robbed the Dallas Cowboys. Like a first-round pick for Amari Cooper. I love Amari Cooper, but I thought he was definitely a middle of the second round type of guy. I didn't think he was warranted for that first round pick. So good job in the robbery, Chucky. And hey, you never know. With all these picks, they could turn around and make a little franchise, the dynasty, like the Cowboys did with that Herschel Walker trade.
Wow. Yeah, that basically, if it wasn't for the Herschel Walker trade, they wouldn't have won those 3 Super Bowls in that 4-year period. That basically not only changed the franchise, it changed the NFL.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Herschel Walker, what was it, like almost 5 or 6 picks? It was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the fact he got traded to the Vikings, and then,
About 4 years later, he was off the Vikings, not even playing with them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a guy who was a star athlete who went to the USFL for a little bit, and then and then goes to the NFL. Worked out so well for him. And then, but he gets traded. But in this particular game, yes, I got the Chargers winning. And in fact, Melvin Gordon, look for 4 total touchdowns. I even think Melvin Gordon is going to do a Philly special.
That seems to be the trendy play for teams to run now, the Philly special. Not just in the NFL, but in the college game.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? It worked. Trey Burton, well, then again, when Trey Burton did it, he was a former quarterback, too, as well, when he made that play in the Super Bowl. So he was able, but there's some people who were, earlier this year, Emmanuel Sanders made a passing play for the Broncos. Now it's against the Cardinals, even though, but still. It's
keeps you on your toes. Sometimes those trick plays, you see a defense, they're just like running through the motions, they're not paying attention. Those are the perfect times to hit them right in the mouth.
You know what's the most accurate guy? Mohamed Sanu is still one of the most accurate non-quarterback passers in the league. That's saying something right there. Former Rucker guy.
Yep.
Well, Mr. Valdez, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, no problem. Sorry, there was a little damage on the Bradley Street Bridge. There was concrete falling on the Staten Island Expressway, causing a lot of chaos. So all of you out there on Staten Island, I feel you. There's all types of chaos all over there.
That's why that happened.
Yes. I was stuck in traffic for about 20 minutes.
I had no idea, because I see the cops are like, we're there, and I'm like wondering what's going on. I'm like, wow, I'm oblivious. I'm not even paying attention. And I want to give a shout out to all my friends at Hemlock Theater for American Idiot this weekend. Have a great show, and to the Little Victory, have a great 2nd annual Playwrights Festival.
I'm going to take you guys out right now, so take it away.
So, well, Mr. Valdez, or Corey.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Oh, and a special to all veterans, including this guy here who served his country with distinction, honor in the Marines. Hoorah!
Hoorah.
And to all military people, have a great Veterans Day weekend. You're the pride. You're the best. Peace and love, Staten Island. Good night.